Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So happy to have you here for another conversation. Today, I'm going to be talking with the very, very wonderful SKY DE SELA. So if you love clowning and you want to find out more about clowns, stick around.
It's just a conversation with a fellow clown. It's not very serious, we're clowning around. It's really just a conversation.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Barnaby King. I am founder of Clown Spirit, where we take the power of clowning and we use it to bring lightness, joy, and connection to your life and the lives of everybody around you. So if you're new to the Clown Spirit family, I have a little message for you. In fact, it's not from me. It's from my very good friend, Professor Teddy Love. So over to you, Teddy.
Hello, everybody! Now, Mr. King and I are trying to grow this channel. We're trying to get the marvelous art of clowning to as many people as we can around the world. And there's so many ways that you can join in. You can hit the subscribe button below this video. You could give us a thumbs up. It really helps to boost the channel. Or you could get into the chat and tell us your thoughts, your questions about clowning. Or better still, you can check out our amazing Patreon site and find all the cool bonuses that you get if you become a Clownversation supporter. So many ways for us to get the clown out. Back to you in the studio, Mr. King.
Why, thank you very much, Teddy. I'm so excited about our guest today, everybody. So let me tell you a little bit about SKY DE SELA. She is, or she has been involved in the circus since the age of 14, which is pretty exceptional. And I want to hear more about that story in a minute. But she was with the Pickle family circus from the age of 14 and began her career mostly in doing trapeze and juggling and acrobatics. And then in her 20s, I believe, made that transition into theatrical environment and clowning. And since then, she has produced, directed, performed in so many clown productions. She's now based in France, in a rural part of France. She'll tell us exactly where, because I can't remember right now. And she is a wonderful, wonderful clown. There are some really amazing YouTube videos available of her work. Some of the images that I've been posting on Facebook as well have attracted so much attention because they're so visually striking. Her clown is really, really poetic and beautiful. And I'm very excited to talk to her today. She's also an amazing teacher and like myself, a parent. And I think that she's interested in how clowning and theatre is really so much connected with our everyday lives and our relationships. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome to the Clownversation stage, SKY DE SELA. Let's keep it. It's not stopping. It's not stopping. Okay. We need to stop now because we need to have a conversation. Oh my gosh. Sky, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Barnaby, for that beautiful introduction. So graceful.
You're very welcome. I'm so excited to have you here because we failed as clowns. We succeeded because clowns like to fail, but we kind of had a bit of a false start with our first conversation. So I'm so glad that we are here to finally be able to talk.
Me too. Little miracles count.
I know, right? I mean, there you are, right across the other side of the world. Now, tell us exactly whereabouts you are, because I couldn't remember.
I'm in Burgundy County, which is, and I'm out in the countryside in France. So it's about 2.5 hours southeast of Paris, not so far from Dijon, between Paris and Dijon. Really with the cows, out with the cows and the grapes.
And the mustard.
And the mustard, not so far from the mustard.
The Dijon.
Yeah.
So in Burgundy, which is, of course, very famous for its wine. So wine, mustard, cows. Wow.
Yep. Cheese, lots of cheese.
Of course.
Yeah.
It sounds like heaven. I miss the French cheese. It's not so great over here.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yes.
Truly. Yeah.
Well, you're so welcome. And also welcome to the people who are watching at home. I've got a few people chiming in on the comments already. Rocket Raisin, Frobbit, hi, Catfish, Lucy, Joanna Bassi. Hi, Joanna. Good to have you here. Some of our regular friends coming back to join. And of course, as always, if you guys have questions for Sky or just comments or thoughts, then please chime in the chat. Tracy, nice to have you here. Hi, Tracy. All right. So, Sky, my first question to you is something I always ask all my guests, and it's usually a good starter. Now, it's about how you got into clowning, right? Now, we know that you were in the circus, but then at some point you made the transition from kind of circus skills generally into clowning. And I'm really curious about, I guess, that transition, because I assume that you were learning a lot about clowning even before you made that transition, because you were with the Pickles. But what was that journey, and what was that transition that took you into more really focusing on clowning?
I'll try and make it brief because it was a long life.
No, you've got a whole hour to talk. So
so I was a trapeze artist. First off, I started as an aerialist. And in Pickles, I had the great good fortune to be first an apprentice and then to become a performer, acrobat, trapeze artist, juggler. And I didn't clown in Pickles, not really clown, but I had the opportunity. I worked with Judy Finelli, who was fantastic and who gave me this freedom. She trusted me with this role in the Café des Artistes, which was like a burlesque vaudeville theatrical piece, which was very cool in the 80s. And so I had this very cool opportunity to do something silly. And it just rose up in me already at that point and surprised me, surprised Judy. It wasn't really set to be necessarily comical, but she just gave me a lot of freedom. And it turned very quickly into a kind of a clowny role. So that was the first sort of surprise.
Because until then you thought you were just a straight circus performer.
Yeah.
Acrobatics,
yeah. Even though I had kind of like dabbled a teeny little bit in high school in acting, and I kind of liked silly, but I didn't realize just how far it was gonna go.
It's very interesting, isn't it? How the silly comes out differently in different people at different stages, And of course, it is kind of like an old circus tradition that people don't become clowns at first. That they develop these skills, and that those skills are really important. But at some point, they realize that they're actually clowns, and then they can make the transition.
It's true. And there is an order to it in the traditional circus world it's actually really surprisingly very respectful. I have an affection for that order, even though I think it can be all kinds of orders, and you can be a clown when you're very, very young. But there's something about that I like, because what it does is that it gives clowning, it's sort of, it gives it some dignity, even if in its absurdity. It's like, you got to know something to clown. You've got to have a little bit of distance, or a little bit of experience, or a little bit of life behind you. And there's something about that I really liked it. But I don't agree that you can't clown before then.
Yeah.
So, but to come back to just quickly to the story. So I did many years. I was 15 years an aerialist. And did high swinging trapeze, and came all the way to France to find the teachers, and had a bit of an odyssey, and then ended up back at the circus school in Montreal. And there was another, like, I'd say a second after the Pickles lent me that opportunity. Then I had a workshop, an important workshop, clown workshop, 3 weeks or something. And then I was injured on the trapeze, and I had to do something for the end of the year show. And I was like, well, let's try clowning. And so then there was a second sort of opportunity to do it with an audience, and to realize that was fun. But I was nowhere near becoming a clown. That was just kind of a parenthesis, and kind of a joyful parenthesis. And then went on to keep clowning, and to continue to experience injuries and operations and frustration and limitation, and also to have kids. Have my daughters, to begin to be a mother. And so becoming a mother really changed my relationship with the air, because I became more protective of, I didn't want to leave them alone. And I was aware of, I had some accidents. I had a fall off the trapeze. And so I had a sort of an awareness of the danger early on. And so then I sort of started to calm things down, and I stopped the high swinging, and then I was doing only still trapeze. And then I was just very limited because I had a chronic tendonitis in my elbow, and I had ruptured a ligament in my knee. And so then it was really the injuries, I have to admit, that really led me to clowning. And then, since I had begun my own company with friends in France, which was called the Circus Pocheros, with Golko, who's actually, you might have heard of Golko, an American clown friend, but also with a group of European and French close friends. And we created the Circus Pocheros, and that was a kind of a tool that really gave me the possibility to transition how I wanted to transition. I kind of became a clown very slowly through, I did a comical role, I guess I would call it. It wasn't a clown. I didn't have, I wouldn't call it a clown. I didn't have a nose. I wasn't fully engaged in the nothingness and in the fact of being totally stripped down and doing only that. And I was still kind of mourning the fact of not being able to be in the air and going through a lot about that. But I did majorly transition and stopped doing trapeze in that show. And then I worked with Willy Hircel, who's a very important Swiss circus inventor, I would say, and has really had a lot to do with the new circus, the Cirque Contemporain in Europe. And he approached me at one point, and my sister Ayin, and my husband at the time, Mess Rosenbeck, and he asked us if we wanted to be in a show, to just us, just to create a show. And we were honored and said yes. And that was the spot where I really became a clown, because he stripped away, he did something very mean and nasty and wonderful, which is that he kept taking everything away. He kept saying, how about if we take that? Nah, I'm not so sure about that costume. And I don't think you need that accessory. And I think you should just take that. And I was like, okay. And then I ended up with nothing. I ended up 1 week from the premiere with really nothing. And I would come onto the stage in my moment. And I seriously remember standing and crying. I was so shattered. I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't have a hold of it yet. And that was really incredible, because I learned through that experience how incredibly important it is to get to an empty place before you fill up again. That experience, like, I never could have learned it in such a completely vital way. And so basically what happened is I went into like a room by myself. I was furious with the director, with Welly. I was like, he's leaving me in the shit. He's totally dumped me here with nothing. He's telling me what not to do, but he's not telling me what to do. I am so grateful to what he did for me. So basically I went into an empty room, and like in a short 1 hour, I think, it just like, and it wasn't perfect yet at all, far from perfect. And I had lots of work to do on it, but I had the act, like this weird little act that I ended up doing for many years, which was mostly based on kind of the body and my fingers, and because I didn't have anything. And I was like, I went marching over to him and I said, I want to do this. I want to do this. And I want to really do clowning. And I was like, okay. And I started makeup and nose, and let's do this. And so that was the big jump.
So when you went into that room, that's kind of, you just invented some shtick, some material that came up.
Yeah. Yeah. I just kind of, and I think it was something about the emptiness. I'm convinced that it was something about the fact of having gotten to such an empty place and such a barren place where I wasn't pretending to have nothing. I had nothing. It wasn't oh, this is a philosophically interesting concept. It was that I was really, really, really upset and very insecure. And I didn't know what I was going to do when the premiere was like a week away. And something about the combination of the emptiness and the desperation and a lifetime behind me of all kinds of stuff. I mean, I was 32, so it wasn't a lifetime, but it was a lot of, I started Circus when I was 14. So I had some years of stuff behind there. And then it just rose up, and it really, it came to the rescue. And somehow I've always used my body stretched, been physical and stuff. But then suddenly I was looking at my hands, and I thought, okay, I'm going to look at my hands. And then came this idea with the fingers. And I can't remember exactly, because it was a while back. Honestly, I don't remember exactly how that happened, how it occurred, that it came kind of pouring in so quickly. But I think that it has a lot to do with allowing for the emptiness and the discomfort of really stripping away and not pretending to strip away. And that's been a very important part of how I teach. It's become, because the experience was so sort of fundamental for me, that it wasn't something I decided to do, but it was really in there. And bit by bit, the exercises that I began to construct to help other people ended up being partly based around that idea of stripping away, get empty first, and then we'll see, then the clown can come in.
And why is that so important, do you think, to get empty?
Oh, I think because it's the most respectful thing we can do. I think that it's very rare. I think that we fill everything up. We fill spaces. I feel mentally, we're always filling up the spaces. And it's something that we learn how to do. And I think a lot of it is fearful filling up, because emptiness is a little bit scary. I mean, kind of wonder if you're still there when it's so empty. You kind of wonder who you are. And so to me, the emptying out is really, it's like it's a gift you give yourself, or a gift you give the audience if you manage to do it on stage, of trust. I think it has a lot to do with trust. And I just find the importance of having an empty room, for example, when you start working. I can't begin working on a project if the room has stuff in it from the other project. I can't. It's something about, like, you got to make it empty and then see what comes. Because if it's got something from before, then you're building on something else, and it's not the same thing at all. And if you've got the emptiness, then it's something actually truly new can come, whether it's a movement that comes out of the nothing, or whether it's you realize that this object sitting in the nothing makes you want to do this with it, or the kind of improvisation that comes from emptiness, from empty space, and then from much more difficult to access, but like an empty brain, which is, it's harder to get there, but it's, to me, just as important as an empty space. And so I've spent a lot of time with students working on half of the day. The first couple of days of a clown workshop is going to be about emptying out and trying to get.
What are those exercises? What do they look like?
The exercises are they're very contemplative. A lot of them are eyes closed, solitary, not at all demonstrative. People just sort of breathing and feeling and listening with their, like, really trying to hear the sounds and open, just like after an hour, maybe they'll open their eyes and look at something. And then you really look at it with fascination, openness, awakeness, but no comment. That's the job, is to not have a judgment, to not have a comment, to not think, oh, that's ugly, or oh, I wouldn't have done it like that, or why is then start blah, 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 blabbing. To just work on the presence. And it's funny, because in the first few, in the introduction, I tell the students that we're going to work on presence, but not stage presence, just plain presence, because we're so bad at it. I'm so bad at it. We're all so busy and so sort of, demonstrative and a bit frantic. And so it's so incredibly basic to me to spend a lot of time to really give everybody a chance. And over again during the week and during the day, come back to after almost every exercise, come back to this very neutral stance, eyes closed, a lot of focus on breathing. It's very meditative. Yeah. But it really, because I think it's just so necessary. It's like one of the only ways that I think that anyway, it's one of the only tools that I can find to get to a place where we can stop thinking for 2 seconds, because thought is so incredibly, it just gets in the way of the clown. The clown can't come through if you're thinking too much, unless you're so far along that the thought can be used. That's great. That's wonderful. But that's later. First, it's like to clear out the space.
Fascinating. So I think this piece that you're talking about, that you created in that empty room, is similar to what I've seen of some of your work online. There's a video of you doing an act where you put, it's beautiful. You put the makeup on in front of the audience, and then you do what you just described, the bit with the fingers and sort of discovering your body and the body sort of misbehaving and rebelling against you, and you're strong. You know, it feels very classic, and yet also just so simple and beautiful and absolutely lovely work, even online, even on the camera.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know what you're talking about. It's the act, and it is that act. That's I think the one, I don't know exactly which one you're talking about, but I think it's the one that came out of that exact empty fearful moment. I think it's that one. And yeah, and that was very much helped also by Welly, that the producer, that man who helped me to realize that it was important to take away. And that stripping down process, I think, is wonderful and scary and great, because then you can start up out of that empty place. Then you can start doing the fun, the amplifying emotions and being excessive and sharing all the whole mess of it. Because I really have this feeling like there are two essential parts. What I see, how I see clowning, is that there's this pure presence, this plant, almost like a plant. Like, how can we be not even an animal, but a plant, just exist? And then how to move without a brain? How can we find the source of a movement that does not come from the will, and the will connected to the brain, but just a sort of a different stem, like a stem of movement where it's just momentum that we can listen to, but we have to first get quiet, and then we can maybe hear it. So there's that, and that's still part of the same element, this sort of something sort of sacred, something sort of comes touching somehow something divine, if I dare say. And then, to me, the other on the other side of it is the absolutely so important mess, and the inability, and the fact that we are actually not able to just be, because we have this brain and we have this incredible opportunity to be on this planet and try. And to give that over, to hand that over, to give the trying, the effort, and that whole effortful, the sharing, the effort, sharing the inability, sharing the loss, sharing the dark side, and the part that we're not proud of, and really admitting. So it's got like this purity, and then it's got this like the wonderful chaotic mess. And without that one, the other ones, you can't forever be pure and plant-like. It would not be clowning either. It's just, to me, it's like both, they really complete each other.
That's really interesting. So the plant for you is like representative of the sort of sacred side of it, in a way, or the natural side of it, like this sort of this accessing something magical that and that's provides a beautiful contrast or counterpoint, right, to this messy reality of being human, and the mistakes and the
and to me, because I had this experience of first being a trapeze artist, which is like impressing. The point is to impress. You go really high up and you show your body and you impress people. There's this whole element of I'm strong and I'm high up and I'm not scared and I'm brave and I'm strong. And so there's a really totally opposite experience to I'm down here on the ground. I have nothing to show you. I'm not strong. I'm not brave. I mean, I am brave, but I'm not going to impress you by doing something that people are going to go, ooh. It's more, if you're going to impress somebody, it's with the sheer folly of the fact that you're opening your heart to these people who don't know you and trusting them with your absolute, like you said, your absolute chaos and your absolute foolishness and your absolute the mess of me. So
would you mind if I put a little short clip of the act on the screen and we can look at it together?
Go right ahead. I feel so famous right now. This is so fun.
You are. So here it is. Can you see that?
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
I'm gonna make it like that so that Yeah. Okay. So it's just like a little moment.
Mm.
I don't know if the audio is coming through, but maybe it doesn't matter. So this is the feet. This is after you've already put the makeup on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's a lovely sound thing, music, a rhythmic thing.
A really nice musician. I worked with a wonderful musician who was very sensitive.
Uh-huh.
He was great.
I love this. I just love the dawning realization on the face of what's going on. It's so good. So is this Sky, is this what came out during that sort of that moment in the room?
Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's the one. That's the basic thing. And I worked it, you know, I had the good fortune to have a really nice tour with Welly, the producer there. And so we did a lot of shows. And so it built with the audience. The audience is so important, obviously. And so I learned how to work on clowning, which was an incredible gift, because I had a show. We did 300 shows in 3 years. I mean, we really did a lot of shows. We toured a lot. It was such a gift. And so then, because of the regularity of it, I started to really be able to understand, hear, you know, listen to the audience reaction. And then every morning I would work by myself, very important, in the empty tent, and work on little teeny timings. And then in the evening I could test it again. And then, so I was like, you know, crafting. And I learned that was also very, very, very useful for teaching, because I learned that it's not only about just this sort of vague opening your heart and throwing yourself somewhere. It's also work. It's also timing. It's also, there are things that you can actually work on. It's not purely spirit or something. So that was really an amazing opportunity.
In your teaching, do you, because I remember having this conversation with you before about work in relation to teaching children and trying to trying to explain to children that there is hard work involved in being funny, and trying to bring some kind of discipline to it.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to interrupt you.
No. And I imagine that you know, for adults it's equally difficult sometimes to kind of bring that discipline when maybe people, I know certainly in clown workshops, you know, there's maybe a tendency for people just to want to kind of like as you just mentioned, kind of just open up and just be there and kind of have that sort of, you know, really cathartic experience, or on the meditation that you're talking about. So what does it look like do you separate out the sort of the training into different workshops or different exercises when, for example, the distinction between, that opening up or emptying out, and then the sort of, okay, how do we fill it up again? How do we express a specific idea that we want to express? Or how do we develop and refine some?
Well, that's something that I'm just really starting to do more and more now, these years, because for many, many years, I pretty much proposed a workshop that was a 5-day, 30-hour workshop. And it was very much the open up, presence, cathartic, with that whole side of things. But there comes the moment when it's clown improv, and then everybody gets into. I love that. I tell them to put makeup on with no mirror, to change their shape, and they get all excited and goofy. And then each person comes one by one, and that's a kind of a cruel way to begin, but it's really important that each person has a 10-minute moment. And then I'm with them and I'm guiding them. I'm talking to the clown and I'm helping them, because I don't believe in leaving people drowning in their misery. It's not my personal way of teaching. And so then it's very different for each person, but there's I often insist on sticking to the base rules of amplify the emotion that's real, that's there. Don't try and go and find some idea. So this is all in this 30-hour workshop that I have been teaching for many years. Yeah. Take what's really happening, amplify it, work with this non-mental movement exercise that we work on. And then each person is going to have their own wild clown spirit that's going to come through. And then I just get the blissful and difficult job of interacting with that clown and helping them to, in those 10 or 15 minutes, to exist, to have fun, to find the champagne inside, to feel the giggle and the whole that marker, that arrow that points to being in the right place. Because I'll do a lot to help them to touch on it, because I think that joy of feeling it, of hearing the laughter, hearing everybody laugh, and feeling the feeling of just like the mad laughter that comes up in you when you're in the right place, it gives so much confidence, and then they can go so much further, and then we can get to work. So that's like a platform. And these years, I've begun to separate it into levels, so that once people have done that level, then I propose level, I hate levels. I think it's kind of silly, but I'm doing level 2, which means it doesn't mean that much, but it means we've already done that 30-hour workshop. And then we can get into delving deeper and begin to get into personal matter, personal message, personal, what do you want to say? Yeah. And what object do you want to work with? And what's not just this kind of vast and then singular clown presence. And then the third workshop is the writing workshop. The clown to begin to write a sort of a number. And not that it has to be however many minutes or anything, but to begin the process of writing. And what does writing mean in clowning? What does that mean? It means finding things in improvisation and then redoing them, and finding the source of the motion or the source of the emotion, instead of trying to repeat the externals. Oh, I did this, I lifted my arm, but find the actual, what led you to do that, so that the feeling can return and you can be new within it, so that you don't get bored and boring so that's the writing workshop. And so I'm working with that. That's fun, and I've been experimenting with that. And just to come back to your question about the kids, because I am really fascinated with kids. It's a different job. And at the same time, it's not. Yeah. It's the same and it's different. I was trying to figure out what it is. First of all, the kids they're almost closer in time. They're closer to this sort of newborn thing that I'm trying to get to with the clowns. So it's actually not, it's nearer to them in a way, but then it's further away, because they just want to goof off. They just want to, they think clowning is fall down, and they want to laugh hysterically, and they want to laugh hysterically immediately. And they want to do whatever it is so that they can all goof around. And so I appreciate that, because that's in a way, it's a good place to be, because that's what it's about too, is that we want to laugh. I want to laugh too. and I want them to want to laugh. And so that's perfect. But at the same time, it's really irritating because it means you can't get there from here. You have to go through some work. And so you're asking me about that work and rigor problem. And that's something that I find with both adults, not really with adults, but it's different. With kids, you really hit this wall of like kids saying to me, I remember a kid saying to me, I thought your workshop was going to be fun. I don't like this. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry you don't like it. Let's talk about that. And then we had to go and we went through this interesting thing where he said, I don't have to do your stupid exercises. He was a pretty rebellious kid. And he said, I can make people laugh without them. And I said, okay, cool. Go for it. And we all sat down. I said, everybody come sit down. We're going to watch. And you can be funny now. And it's horrible. It's a horrible. I mean, that's the position I don't want to put people in. But he was asking for it. So then he started telling like stupid jokes and nobody was laughing. And he felt the emptiness, that terrible emptiness that adults or kids feel when it's not happening. And he started to squirm. And then he took off his sweater and I said, good, well, continue, go with that. And he looked at me like, go with what? And I said, go with that. You took off your sweater, keep going. The kid, I mean, this is like, he ended up like stark naked. It was absolutely hilarious. This is probably politically incorrect. And I have to be careful, I guess, because I'll probably be called on some sexual harassment case or something. But the kid ended up laughing hysterically. All the kids were laughing hysterically. He took all his clothes off and he was standing there going, ah! And everybody was in fits. And then afterwards he like put his clothes back on and he looked at me and he said, I was pretty good, wasn't I? It was so good. And then I said, you know what? You were great. You were really brave. Because in that moment, it was really scary for you to take off your clothes. And you took off your clothes. Did you hear people laughing? That doesn't mean you always have to take off your clothes. But in that moment, that was really, really great that you went all the way to do this really crazy thing. And that's part of what clowning is. And he said, maybe I could be in the Cirque du Soleil. Because I'm so good. He was really, really proud of himself. So anyway, that was just a silly story, but to kind of explain about how far you have to go to actually make people laugh without going into pre-cooked, mushy jokes and stupid. And that's one of the main things I tell everybody before the first improv. Don't have any ideas. Please don't have any ideas. Please don't be thinking up an idea of your entrance right now. Please. Just come in alive and awake and fully alert and see what happens, but really alive, and look around and smell the smells. And then see what really rises up in you. What's the feeling that rises up in you? And then we'll do the exercise. We'll work on it. And then there is, of course, the more, the burlesque, the tripping, and with kids I spend time working on the emotion exercise because it actually does work with kids.
Yeah, tell us about that. So this is the sort of amplifying emotion.
This is the amplifying exercise that I sort of was trying to figure out how to get to the absurdity, how to get to the excess, which is so central, in my opinion, in the clowning world. The excess that shows that you trust the audience, the excess that turns it into something absurd, the excess that gives you the distance from whatever it is that you're actually feeling. So you can take something personal and then take it outside yourself. And so it's just a very square exercise where I have them close their eyes, whether they're kids or adults, close their eyes, stand neutral, and do a couple of breaths and just listen to the sounds so that you disconnect from what you're thinking about, what you're going to eat later on or whatever. And then I ask them, how are you? How do you feel? And they're not supposed to answer with words. And they're supposed to check in and try and get to the truth of it, if possible. There are multiple truths. But how do you feel really right now? Maybe you're trying to be polite and be nice, but actually you feel angry. Or maybe you're, different levels. So try to find the one, and then I count from 1 to 10. And they still have their eyes closed. So I count 1 means that the emotion filters into the whole body. And so then it's not neutral anymore, but it's very fine. And then 2 is further. And then you take it to your fingertips, and you take it to you take it everywhere. And you're just this voyage of me bringing the volume up, and they still have their eyes closed, but they get more and more. They figure out positions, and I'm always saying to them, come on, don't get lazy. And it's not because you found one thing that works, one gesture that you're like, that's great, that's really the emotion. Don't stick there. Do your laboratory work. Okay, you found that, put it in your pocket. Now find something else. Lay down, stand up, go slower, go faster. Figure out what fits, what works with that emotion that keeps it alive, keeps it burning. And the entire exercise, they're not allowed to change emotions. They're not allowed to, because it makes them laugh, go into laughter, even if it was sad, or get depressed because it's not working and then go down. No, it's very strict. They have to stay in this frame of that one emotion. And they go all the way up to 10. So then by 10, everybody's like shrieking and howling, and it's lovely, it's joyful. And basically at 10, if I can get them to listen, they can open their eyes and continue. And then there's a whole management. And then we go 10, 5, 3, 8. And then we even, when they're even a little further along, you can even go 0. And then blum. You're just back to presence, neutral, open presence, and then 7, and then blah, the thing's back again. So basically, it's really, really useful, because what it is that you're saying what I say to the students, whether they're, well, kids can't hear it exactly, but we're using ourselves and the moment, the real matter of the moment, but you don't get to just be ordinary about it, because that wouldn't be clowning. So then you have to take it and you have to amplify, get to a place where you're having fun with it, whether it's paranoia or whether it's you take worry will become paranoia, or so it does change a bit. It becomes an amplified version of itself. And that management does something, because it gives the person, it gives them it's very powerful. It's empowering. That's a funny word. It's a very San Francisco word, but I find it very empowering that you can see that you can have a real emotion and that it's yours. You're not pretending, but it doesn't have to own you. And it doesn't have to decide what you are how you're going to exist. You get to take it and then you decide, because of obviously in the beginning, I'm saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but eventually they don't need somebody outside saying that. Eventually they realize they can manage their thing. And also interruption is like one of the most precious and treasures of clown, like that they can be at 10 and all of a sudden, bloom, forget all about it. See, oh, there's a thing on the wall, or like, that's so clown. It's so important. Right. And that is part of that management. And if you're 2, because people say to me, oh, so it's like therapy. Your classes are like therapy. And I say, no. I think they're therapeutic sometimes, but they're absolutely not like therapy, because first of all, we're not analyzing. We're just busting into it. We're taking it, and it's like we have this matter that comes from ourselves, but then we play with it, and we have to be irreverent enough to break in and to let ourselves be. We can be screaming and howling and then forget what we were screaming and howling about, or the opposite, or somebody can say something and you can't even remember what you were. That rupture, that interruption is so good. So that's a part of that exercise, an important part of that exercise.
From what you're saying, this is really amazing, some of the stuff you're saying. And I'm getting a lot of comments here that are really, really positive. And people, Robert says, best conversation yet. When's the masterclass? Please. Lucy says, can we have a link to your classes? I can certainly share your website. Do you have listings of workshops on your website?
Yes, I do. The silly thing, and this is very embarrassing, is that it's all in French. And I really have to get on it. I'm American. This is ridiculous. And translate my website. And so, but there is on my website, it's called Formation. So formations, the word formations, de clown, formations of clown. And if you go into there are dates, there are workshops on there, but I really do. I apologize in advance to anybody and everybody for having no English version. And I'm going to do my best to get on that.
What's the address of the website?
It's www. And this is in French, obviously. It's Compagnie Mescla. So it's the name of my company, which is, so it's COM PAGNIE, and then mezcla, as in the Spanish word for mix, MEZCLA, and then .com.
I've got it. I'm going to just put it into the chat for people. So
wonderful.
There's a great thing called Google Translate, and it just automatically translates the website for you. So
wow, I should hook into that.
I don't think you need to do anything. I think if people just go to your website,
oh, great, they can access it themselves.
Yeah,
perfect.
It's
even
scary.
better.
It's scary these days. What's possible?
Yeah, well, scary sometimes is good.
Yeah. So that just removed the whole job from your to-do list there.
That's so cool. Thank you so much for giving me a job and then taking it away 5 minutes later. I like this. This has a good rhythm to it.
So please, folks, if you have any questions for Sky, we've only got like 15 minutes left. This time is flying by. So get your questions in there if you have any for Sky. I have a ton, so I'm happy if nobody does put anything in there. Okay, so let me go back. So we were talking about, so this is wonderful because what you're talking about is working from the inside out. And if you're connected to the emotion and you know how to sort of manipulate, but sort of feel the authentic emotion, but then sort of play with it and let that work itself outwards into gesture and expression, then in a way you're unlimited by what physically you can, there's no limits, right? You could express in any way as long as you're connected to that emotion.
And that's what's wonderful about that, is that it doesn't have to repeat itself, but you can find it again. So that if you're trying to write an act, if you're trying to write a number, you can include a feeling, you can include an emotion, a state. You can say, I really want to work with anger. Anger is so fun to work with. Or I really want to work with whatever it is, impatience. So then you can kind of put it in the frame. You can stick it in there. You can write it in. And then, like, as you say, if you really work with amplification, you can find the reality of it without getting bored by, oh, that means I have to choreograph it. But you might end up doing very similar things, because that's what happens when you go to number 10 of Fury. I mean, or of whatever it is. But it doesn't. But it's not for the same reason. It's not stiff.
Yeah.
It's not sewn together. It comes from a place of something real and that you can touch on.
Yeah.
Hopefully, again and again, without losing freshness somehow.
This is sort of for me transcendent, where clowning becomes poetry and art and theater, and it's not just form. It's not just the gag, and it's not just a kind of a static character, and yet presumably there's a lot to learn from, like commedia and mask work. These kinds of things, which are more formal, but but
it's like, but they're wonderful too. It's like I often think about how often dancers first do ballet, and then they do contemporary, and then they don't even have to name it anymore. But they did do the ballet, and you can't necessarily just get on stage and do whatever and have it be as beautiful as if you go through these kind of structured, somewhat stiff. I mean, ballet is really excessive, but I agree that there is technique. There is technique, and there is body language, and there's extension, and I do a warm-up before we start. I do a physical warm-up, like a qigong thing, so that at least you have some access to your limbs, and you can't forget your knees, and you have to put the emotion into your spinal cord, or it's so having access to the body is one thing that needs actual time. And then, like you say, commedia dell'arte, there's so many different ways, and I know other clown teachers who really work from the outside in and reach very similar end results. So I have no They work. They'll do like, okay, so first you're going to put your chin out, and then you're going to stick your butt out, and you end up with an emotion. You end up with an emotion that you actually feel because you stuck your chin out and you put your butt in it, and you're feeling like that, and you're not feeling the same at all. So you can totally work it from the outside, and I have great respect for that. It just happens to be that the way that I find inspiration, and it makes the most sense to me, is to go from what is happening right now as much as possible, knowing that, of course, if you write an act, you're not always going to feel the thing, obviously, and you have to find the link to the moment. But then there's, of course, the fact of, if you work presence enough, the simple presence, that plant-like thing, then your improvisational skills are also going to be worked on, because in the moment, it's that thing. If there's a bell rings and you're not there, you're not going to hear it. And if you're there, you're going to hear it and you're going to respond, and an audience loves it when you respond in the moment. Because they're so impressed that you're present, and everybody gets to go, oh my God, she's present, he's present, and then we're all present together, and we all heard it. Right? And it's this sharing of the moment that everybody gets so excited about, because it is exciting. Because it's so incredibly exciting to share something that actually is happening, and not only reading out of a book. I don't mean, I love books. I just mean something that happened before, or you're kind of stirring up the old soup or something. And so that's that presence that is such an incredible tool, along with the amplification, and then the tools of the burlesque, and which they're not my specialty. I'm not that great at that stuff. I would need to go take workshops. I would need to go. I wish that I had more time. I would go take a bunch of workshops.
But if you watch the video that we just saw, for example, your acrobatic skills are clearly evident in what you're doing.
First of all, there's so many different responses inside of me to that. First one is, it was really weird to watch it, because that was 20 years ago, and I still feel my foot going like this on the floor, and it's really interesting. I couldn't really detach myself, and at the same time I was going, wow, I could lift my foot up there. That was pretty cool. Those were the days, because I can't anymore. And so that's it's a bit of a process. And I remember at the time being very embarrassed to be doing so little physically. So these are life paths. Because I remember being like, oh, well, I don't do anything in the act.
We have to, before the time finishes, we have to talk about, what is your creative journey? Like, what are you involved with now? And because your clown reflects your life, as you just said, it's your life journey, right? So what is it you're exploring in your own work as a performer now that is reflective of, I don't know, where you are in your life?
Thank you for the question. I stopped performing clowning live performance in 2015 because of physical limitation and difficulty. So that's been a real challenge, to have to give up a lot of physical freedom, and also the whole performing lifestyle. Part of it I'm happy to give up, because I am really not in the mood to go stick myself in the middle of the freaking thing with all the lights on me and make sure everybody's looking. Oh my God. I just say thank you so much, and congratulations to everybody who has the courage to do it today. So I'm not there. I'm not in that live performance place anymore. I'm very happy to not be. But I admit that I still dream about clowning, being Ibu, being the clown. I miss that magical, deep innocence, and so the solution that I have found is to make little movies, because I can do it. It's not the same. I don't have an audience, so I very much miss the golden thread that links you to the audience, where you feel this current. I miss that. Who knows what's going to happen in life? Maybe I'll find it again someday. But meanwhile, since I can't do that for now, I've been, with the help of friends and family, I've been working on I made one little movie called the Le Voyage d'Ibu, the trip, Ibu's trip. Ibu is the name of my clown. And it's a strange sort of slow Super 8, made with Super 8 film. And it was made very, very slow and stretched out, because it was behind me as I was performing. And then I made it into a shorter object, and it's got a strange rhythm, but I like it. And so after that, Voyage d'Ibu, and now I'm making another little Ibu movie. So that's the way that I found to sort of, in a very discreet way, and then with my own timing and when I can do it, and not having to sell it, and not having to be in the whole process of that I was in for 30 years of, because I sold my own shows a lot of the time. And that was as everybody knows, that's a difficult thing to do. Yeah.
Somebody's wondering, as I am, whether the movie you've made already is available online.
The movie that I made is available online. It's called Le Voyage d'Ibu. D''IBOU is the clown name. So it's Le Voyage d'Ibu. And that's like a 13 minute. And it's one that I made with Super 8 film. And part of it is made in Burgundy, like around where I live. And the other part is made in Mexico. And because we have a little house in Mexico. And so it was an adventure to make that movie. And it was a very interesting challenge. And I really loved it. And it's got tons of faults. It's got like, oops. Oh, look at that. You found it. Whoa.
And we won't watch it all, but just so that people
please, no. You want to skip the first minute, because the first minute's very slow. It's a very slow arrival.
we'll take it. Oh, it's the piece with the boat and
exactly. It's got the boat, and you've got Mexico, you've got the ocean, it was really an interesting experience to make that little movie. And now I'm trying to go further with that movie making, because it's something I can do on my own.
I'm putting the link to that in the chat.
Thank you so much, Barnaby.
Now, what was the transition like into making something on a screen and for a camera versus being on a stage?
Oh boy, so different. The first time I did it, as I said, it was to put behind me. So I did a theater show where the film was behind the clown.
Oh, got it.
So that was an interesting, it was a level. So I wasn't creating it as a movie itself, which is why there's very few close-ups. And so it's really a lot of atmosphere, and it's sort of a traveling thing. That was, the difficulty is not having an audience and feeling you're often in very difficult circumstances. And I mean, I know actors in cinema have to deal with this all the time, but I was shocked at how am I going to be a clown? How am I going to find the clown spirit when it's freezing cold and there's no audience, and I'm with my husband and the camera's not working, and my daughter needs to get back to school. It was really, really hard to find the clown, and which is why I often watch the little movies, and I'm somewhat disappointed, because I see the faults and I see that it's not clown enough. I worry that it's not clown enough because I'm not necessarily in the place that I reach, either in an improv or with an audience, of really just crystallizing, like sometimes you do, which happens rarely, but sometimes. So it's a very different job. And it's humbling. It's kind of humbling. And it's very interesting to say, okay, well, this is a different kind of clowning. I'm clowning with no audience. I'm trying to just stay in it and see what this clown can do, with my feet in the water, and with the cameraman going, okay, stop, I'm going to start. And you don't get to do your little warm up and your little sacred thing and your little blah, blah. You just have to just do your best. Yeah. And so that was it was humbling, but it was a good exercise. Enjoyed it.
So here's a question that comes out of that, and we have to wrap up very soon, but this is something that's come out of some comments. People are wanting, okay, so Frobit says here, I am in New Zealand. And what about online courses? Is that something you've considered?
At one point during, thank you for Frobit. Thank you for your interest. I have never done it. During COVID, I came close to doing it because for obvious reasons. And at the time, I really felt like it was an impossibility, because it's so heart to heart. Yeah. And because I feel for now that I have to be able to put my hand on their shoulder, or just our eyes have to be able to meet. And we have to, because it's such vulnerable work, especially in the beginning, that for now I can't imagine. I cannot imagine it for now, but I'm willing to sort of open my mind and see where it could possibly go. Maybe there's something that could be done, because I understand the world is big. We can't all be in Burgundy with the cows, and I can't go anywhere for now. I'm very much here. I can't travel these years. So it's an interesting question for now, it's difficult to imagine for me.
You know, so I've got this series that you may have heard of, which a lot of these folks watching are involved with, which is called Clown X, and it's a monthly masterclass with a different teacher each time, about 2 to 3 hours. And you know, it's a question for every one of the teachers that comes onto that is, how do I translate my work into an online format? It's more obvious for some than for others. And I know that often with perhaps with what you might think of as the deeper emotional work, it's more challenging because, yeah, as you just said, you kind of want to be there to support the people.
Right. You don't want to sort of like ask them to jump off of a high diving thing and then not put water underneath. You have to, it's like somebody could really get up, just end up hurt because you're asking for some opening up. And if somebody's all by themselves in their room at that point and going through something difficult because they tried it and they don't understand, but there's no time, I don't know. It just seems, it seems unkind and worrisome to me. I just feel like, well, how do you take care of them? Because it takes a lot of courage, and that courage is so marvelous, and it's so wonderful to meet on that platform of with these gold threads between people of the understanding and sympathy and empathy. And so that's I remain with these questions in my head about is it possible? But I'm curious.
You know, I think maybe sometimes the work online has to be a bit more playful and technical, and you can't necessarily do that more emotional work.
Of course. And it's possible, probably. I don't know. Think about that.
Maybe we can have a further conversation about that. Well, Sky, we've just filled an hour with really wonderful wisdom around clowning, and I've learned so much, and I just want to acknowledge that and just say thank you so much for your generosity in sharing all of this with us. I know that you've inspired a lot of people who are watching, and myself included, so thank you.
Well, thank you, really, thank you, Barnaby, because here I am over here in Europe, and part of me is still actually a little part of me. It's been 30 years. It's been 30 years almost in France now, and there's a part of my heart that stays American, but I'm very far away from it. I'm very far away from. I'm not in the world of American clowns. I don't know anybody, and I'm also out in the country, and life does its thing. So I'm very grateful to you for giving me this opportunity to talk and to sort of have this outreach feeling. It makes me feel very alive. Thank you.
Well, that's awesome. And thanks everyone for tuning in again. Next week, I'm going to be talking to Bim Mason. Do you know Bim, Sky?
I don't. Who's Bim Mason?
He's not a clown, but he's a physical theater teacher, I'd say. He was the founder of Circus Media, which is one of the big circus schools in the UK, in Bristol. So that should be a very interesting conversation.
Wonderful.
So, Sky, thank you again. Bye for now. And I very much hope that we'll have you on again in this clown spirit world at some point in the future.
It would be a delight. Thank you all. Thank you, whoever's listening.
Bye for now. Bye. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in today again for another cool conversation. Hope you enjoyed it. I just want to mention before I go, don't forget that we have this Patreon site, which is an opportunity for you to become a supporter, to actively help promote clowning around the world, and also to gain and benefit from yourself. Check out that website, patreon.com/clownspirit. There are different opportunities to become a supporter there with different bonuses involved. So thanks, everybody. I hope you'll join us next week to chat with Bim Mason, who is a really awesome physical theater teacher in the Lecoq tradition. And stick around, keep clowning, and I love you all. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.